Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Samaharaja Bhupati Ananda Guri Vaishnava Vrinda Jai Namacharya Sthapo Jai Prem Jagasi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasubhuda Bhaktavinda Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radha Gunivran Jai Vrindavan Dham Gijai, Mathura Dham Gijai, Navitam Gijai, Jagannath Puri Dham Gijai, Gongavai Gijai, Yamuna Mai Gijai, Tulasi Devi Gijai, Bhakti Devi Gijai, Samaveda Bhaktandi Gijai, Gaura Pramanandi. All glories to the Sambhava devotees, all glories to the Sambhava devotees, all glories to the Sambhava devotees, all glories to Shri Shri Gauranga, all glories to Shri Prabhupada. So, wir lesen wie immer erst aus dem Transcendental Diary von Hadi Saudi Prabhu. Und Srila Prabhupada befindet sich immer noch in Chandigarh. Prabhupada is still in Chandigarh. So, we continue. Returning outside, Prabhupada sat on an armchair in the driveway and spoke for a few minutes to the gathering. He gave a wonderful explanation of the meaning and purpose of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Das haben wir schon gelesen, oder? Ja. Wurde gestern viel gelesen? Ich kann mich nicht mehr erinnern.
Da wo der Pfeil hin zeigt, da habe ich aufgehört.
Ach so, auf die falsche Seite.
Genau.
Okay, alles klar. Ja. By chanting this Maha Mantra, their heart will be cleansed. Cheto Darpana Majanam. Darpana means mirror, and Cheto means heart. Our heart is like a mirror. Since many, many births, this dust has covered the surface of the mirror. So we have to cleanse that. And what is the method to do that? That is the chanting of Hare Krishna, Mahamantra. If you chant the Hare Krishna mantra, then this Chetodarpana, the mirror of your heart, will be cleansed. You see many demons who are there who never accept the Lord. If they once understand the supremacy of the Lord, then their lives will be successful. So you yourself chant this Mahamantra and teach the same to your children. Parvat expressed his appreciation at the presence of the deities. Although the dress and worship were quite basic, he assured the Goyals that Krishna would accept their service if it was offered in the right mood. I am seeing the deity has appeared here. Serve them daily. Offer the Lord as per your ability. The Lord has agreed to accept whatever you offer him with love and devotion. Even patram pushpam palam toyam. But it is not that for ourselves we take palatable food and patram pushpam for the Lord. No, for those that do not have anything, for them the Lord says, patram pushpam palam toyam yame bhaktya payachati. Bhagavad Gita 9:26. Those who have money, they should build temples, install deities, and arrange for gorgeous outfits and delicious bhoga. And by that they can properly utilize the money they have. It is not that we build a very small room for the Lord and for ourselves a very big, spacious room. No. This is condemned. So build the best temple of the Lord and cook and offer the best quality bhoga to him. Then one is using one's wealth. And if you think that the Lord has said patram pushpam palam toyam, so only these things are for him, and the delicious and palatables are for me, then the Lord will understand everything, because he is much more intelligent than you. The Lord doesn't have any scarcity of anything. Everything belongs to him. So who can satisfy him by offering anything to him? He has given something to you, so you can serve him nicely by those things, according to your capacity that the Lord desires. Prabhupada offered his own efforts as evidence of what service can be done if the proper attitude prevails. We are sannyasis, beggars. We don't have anything, but we do beyond. We don't have anything, but we do beyond our capacity. We are begging alms all around the world, and by that constructed many temples all around. We spend millions of rupees for that purpose. Why do I do all these things? Because I'm his servant. As a servant always thinks, how can I provide more nice accommodation and wonderful arrangements for my master? What is the real consciousness? So the meaning of Hare Krishna Mahamantra is, oh my Lord Krishna, O Shamadhi Radharani, please engage me in the transcendent loving service of your lotus feet. I'm fed up with service to Maya, so please engage me now in loving devotional service of your lotus feet. With a broad smile, Prabhupada said, thank you, and brought his brief visit to a close. The whole Gopal family, the whole Goyal family were deeply honored by his visit and gratified that he had blessed their house and their humble efforts as devotees of Lord Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada was always preaching, either dictating his books or accepting invitations to people's home, especially in India. In the West, not so much. Normally he stayed in the temples only. And people would come to see him there. Just like in London, when Shamasundar was there, and Prabhupada came to London, Shamasundar used to always bring important people to Srila Prabhupada. Very important people. And Prabhupada would preach to them. He had a very special way of preaching to them. He was very nice, the way he received them. He accommodated them so they would be very comfortable. And then he usually said, and what is your philosophy? And when they presented their philosophy, no? Then Prabhupada would not make any concession, no compromise, and he would present the philosophy as it was, like we know. No? Anyway, so and then in the end, Prabhupada was again very nice to them, made sure that they took some prasad, and then anyway, like this. I remember there was one man, he was a famous artist in London. They brought it to him. And so Prabhupada spoke about how Krishna was the source of everything, sarva karana karanam. And so Prabhupada said, any question? And the man said, yes. So Krishna is the cause of everything. Who's the cause of Krishna? And then Prabhupada said, first you understand Krishna, then you understand who's the cause of Krishna. Anyway, so Prabhupada was always preaching, either in his room, dictating his books, or he would give class. When he was there, he would give class every day. Anyway, so, and then he would also go out on a morning walk. And in the beginning, the morning walks were very populated. Many devotees would come out. But then after a while, he would only go out with VIPs, with the very important persons in ISKCON. You couldn't just, walk with Prabhupada on the group. And he would preach to them. He would talk to them. Even though I must say that sometimes Prabhupada didn't say a word when he went out on a walk. And nobody else said a word. Anyway, I've mentioned that many times. I was on a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada in London. And Prabhupada was walking very fast. And I was right walking behind Srila Prabhupada. Very close. And then all of a sudden Prabhupada stopped. Wow! I almost ran into him. And he felt my closeness, and he turned around and gave me a stern, how you say, blick? How you say it in English? Look. Very stern. I never forgot that until today. I still remember that. Anyway, and then Prabhupada would, like I mentioned, he would be in his room, and also he would always preach to his servants and his secretary and whoever came into his room. He stopped and talked to them. And in the afternoon again, normally Prabhupada took prasadam at midday. First he took a shower, like a real, fixed up sannyasi. Sannyasis are supposed to take more than one shower during the day. He normally took a shower, And then he took prasad, and after prasad he would lay down for a while. Yeah, and then normally after the rest, he would either also have guests in his room. They would always bring somebody to preach to. And anyway, so Prabhupada is always preaching. Just like now, no, he's preaching to some rich Indians. In India, many rich people. And in India, they still have some kind of remnants of the Vedic culture. So they treat sannyasis or swamis very, very, very respectfully. We have the experience also, even though Westerners are seen different. Just like when I had to go to some treatment, Ayurvedic treatment, I was always taking a train in Mumbai. Formerly we said Bombay, now we say Mumbai. And I had to go by train, and sometimes the train was so full. But they gave me a special, they gave me a seat, or they went aside to let me pass there. Many people with pranams, and they would fold their hands even like that. Anyway, so Srila Prabhupada was the embodiment of preaching. He gave us so much examples how to deal with people with people who came to see him, and he was very, very frank. Now we will read about this here, how important it is to have association with advanced devotees, or spiritual master, or acharyas, pure devotees, because they can actually change our lives. Anyway, so we read now. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Deutsch or English? What is the language?
English.
Huh? English? Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 So reading from the 4th canto, chapter 31, text 23, no?
Yes.
Yeah? Maitreya Uvacha Iti Pe Aprache Taso Rajan Anyash Cha Bhagavat Kata Shavayitva Brahmalokam Yayo Swayambhuvo Muni Maitreya Uvacha Iti Pachetaso Rajan Anyascha Bhagavat Kataha Shavayitva Brahmalokam Yayo Swayambhuvo Munihi Maitreya Uvacha Iti Pachetaso Rajan Anyascha Bhagavat Kataha Shavayitva Brahmalokam Yayo Swayambhuvo Munihi
Maitreya Uvacha
Maitreya Uvacha
Iti
pracetasa rajan
Anyasya bhagavat katha
Anyasya bhagavat kataha
Saitva brahmalaka
Saitva brahmaloka
Yaya swayam bhavo muni
Yaya swayam bhuvo munihi Maitreya uvacha Iti pracetasa rajan Anyasya bhagavat kataha Saitva brahmalokam Yaya swayam bhuvo munihi
Maitreya uvacha
Maitreya uvacha
Iti pracetasa rajan Anyasya bhagavat kataha Sayavitva brahmalokam
Sayavitva brahmalokam
Yaya swayam bhuvo munihi
Yaya swayam bhuvo munihi
Maitreya uvacha
Maitreya uvacha
Iti pracetasa rajan
Iti pracetasa rajan
Anyasya bhagavat kataha
Anyasya bhagavat kataha
Saitva brahmalokam
Sayavitva brahmalokam
Yaya swayam bhuvo muni
Yaya swayam bhuvo munihi Ladies.
Maitreya uvacha
Maitreya uvacha
pracetasu rajan
Iti pracetasu rajan
Yasya bhagavat kata
Anyasya bhagavat kataha
Sayavitva brahmalokam
Sayavitva brahmalokam
Yayo swayam bhuvo muni
Yaya swayam bhuvo munihi Maitreya uvacha Iti pracetasa rajan Anyasya bhagavat kataha Sayavitva brahmalokam Yaya swayam bhuvo munihi Maitreya uvacha Iti pracetasa rajan Anyasya bhagavat kataha Sayavitva brahmalokam Yaya swayam bhuvo munihi Maitreya uvacha Iti pracetasa rajan Anyasya bhagavat kataha Sayavitva brahmalokam Yaya swayam bhuvo munihi
Maitreya uvacha
Maitreya uvacha Iti pracetasa rajan
Anyasya bhagavat katha
Anyasya bhagavat kataha
Sayavitva brahmalokam
Sayavitva brahmalokam
Yaya swayam bhuvo muni
Yaya swayam bhuvo munihi I notice that the Russian devotees, they tend to say, for example, here Brahma, no? With H in the middle. But they always say Brahma. Is that the way you speak in Russian? You pronounce the H like that? Or is it some other reason? Huh?
Because in Russian books is in Russian.
Sorry?
Sanskrit in Russian books. It is.
Huh?
It is written ha.
What do you say?
I heard this ha in Sanskrit. Properly translated like soft, not ha. In mind, you know about this, but not completely pronounced. I got this explanation.
I never heard Prabhupada say like that. Anyway, Maitreya Uvacha. Maitreya said. Iti. Thus. Pachetasa. The Pachetas. Rajan. O king. Anya. Others. Cha. Also. Bhagavad Gita. Topics about the relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shavayitva. After instructing. Brahmalokam. To Brahmaloka. Yayau. Went back. Swayambhuva. The son of Lord Brahma. Muni, the great sage. Translation. The great sage Maitreya continued, my dear King Viduta, Sri Narada Muni, the son of Lord Brahma, thus described all these relationships with the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the Prachityas. Afterward, he returned to Brahmaloka. So there's a very short purport. Anyway, so all the next verses have almost no purports. And I will just go on reading because it's close to the end of the chapter. So the first purport. One has to hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead from a pure devotee. The Pachetas got this opportunity from the great sage Narada, who told them of the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tepi tanmukha niyatam yashuru kamalapaham harere nishamya tatpadan yayantas dhatigatim yayuhu. Hearing from Narada's mouth the glories of the Lord, which vanquish all the ill fortune of the world, the Pachetas also became attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Meditating on his lotus feet, they advanced to the ultimate destination. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here it is seen that by hearing the glories of the Lord's form, a realized devotee, the Pachetas easily attained strong attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then, meditating on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord at the end of their lives, they advanced to the ultimate goal, Vishnu Loka. It is sure and certain that anyone who always hears the glories of the Lord and thinks of his lotus feet will reach that supreme destination. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 18:65, Manmanabhava matbhakto matyatimam namaskuru mamme vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. Always think of me and become my devotee. Worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. So this is a very important verse from the Bhagavad Gita that Prabhupada was quoting here. Actually, this verse appears, at least the first line, appears 2 times in Bhagavad Gita. That means it's pretty emphasized by Krishna. This part, no, Manmana Bhava Mat Bhakto Madhyaman Namaskuru. Always think of me. And how can we always think of Krishna if you don't know anything about Krishna? That's why we have to hear sufficiently to always think of Krishna. So we should emphasize this point. Shravanam, Kirtanam. The first items of the 9 items of activities, items of devotional service, as propounded by Prahlad Maharaj. Actually, this verse, Prahlad Maharaj spoke to Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu had arranged everything so Prahlad could go to school, his Gurukula. Because it was a demon, he employed two kind of, I don't want to say demonic, but teachers. So, and after a while, Hiranyakashipu wanted to know, how he felt at school. And he set him on his, shoulders, on his lap, and smelled his hair. That's what normally parents do. You will see in the future. So, and then and he asked him, "Oh, my dear Prahlad, what is the most wonderful thing you learned at school?" And he said, "Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaran, Paranasevanam, Achanam, Vandan, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam." The most wonderful thing I learned at school is hearing and glorifying Krishna and so on. And when Hiranyakashipu heard that, and it ended with Vishnu, one should be a devotee of Vishnu, he became extremely angry. But he kind of tolerated it. And instead of giving the sauce to Prahlad, he called the teachers and asked them, "What is happening in your school?" And the teachers were very afraid of Hiranyakashipu. They said, "Oh, we have nothing to do with this. This is Prahlad Maharaj. We notice that he has a great influence among his friends." And then Hiranyakashipu said, "Well, better take care. Otherwise..." And so that became very, kind of... But Prahlad Maharaj, even though his teachers were checking him a lot, still Prahlad was determined. Why was he so determined? Like it's mentioned here, when you hear from a pure devotee or highly advanced devotee about Krishna, then you become influenced. In further verse it says that when you hear this, it goes deep into your heart. It's not a question that maneuvers on the mental platform or intellectual platform only. It goes deep into your heart. So he was preaching to his co-students, his friends, and when the teachers would leave the room, he would make them dance and chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And his friends started arguing in the beginning. They argued in the beginning, but Prahlad, we're just small children. Let us play and sing anything like that. And then he gave that famous verse, which I don't remember exactly. Maybe somebody can quote it, which is always at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavatams. That we shouldn't waste time. Spiritual life should begin as soon as possible. Like the friends of Krishna were, Prahlad, they would say, "But let us play, we're children. These things are for senior people," the way he was preaching to them. And he said, "No, now it's a time. They should start as soon as possible." That's why it's very important that when our devotees have children, that they start educating them from the very beginning in spiritual life. They should make, most important thing in that case is that the parents be exemplary, making obeisances, worshiping deities. I remember many years back, I was traveling and visiting a household couple in North Germany. I don't remember their names. And they had 3 daughters, 3 little daughters. And in the morning when I got up, the father, I saw, I went into the temple, and the father was standing there, worshipping his Gonitai deities. They had no temple, this was just the living quarters. And the little girls were also worshipping their deities. It was like that, The father, the biggest, and then the smallest daughter was also like very serious in worshipping the deities. And I was very impressed. And we can see, when these parents are very serious, then naturally the children also take it for granted. They learn from the very beginning. Just like we went to a few days ago, we had a program in Krishna Seva's home. No, his brother's home. And also, what is that devotee who came there? Somebody went with me? Huh? Sudama. Yeah, Sudama. And I hadn't seen his sons for a long time. And the oldest son was grown up. He was bigger than you. No? Yeah. He was really big. No? And I was amazed the way he was playing Mridanga. Yeah. Incredible. But how did he learn it? I remember he learned from the very beginning. Remember? The son of Sudama? They used to come more often than now. And the boy was always sitting there with this tiny little Mridanga like that. And then we would laugh, what is this? That kind of. But in the meantime, he grew sufficiently, and he became a real expert in playing Mridanga. They should all learn. They should learn the mantras. They should learn how to play the instruments. They should learn how to cook. They should learn how to be very respectful with everybody else. And also, a very important aspect of Vedic culture is that to learn how to receive guests. This is a very, very developed thing, actually. I heard once that this is why, that's how the Muslims entered into India at one point. Because they were treating them so nicely, so they just came in. Or the British also. They came there and they were treated so nicely with so much respect that they changed their mind and put down their foot, brought their army and made it a colony like that. And Chanakya Pandit also said something about that. He said, when you receive a guest, even you might be the poorest person around, but when you receive a guest, you should receive them with very nice or kind words. And if you don't have cushions and sofas and all that, put them at least, stromatte. What is that? Straw mat. A straw mat. And if you don't have any opulent prasadam, at least give them a glass of water, like that. This is very important. I have the Lilamrita, Satsvarubhas, I have it, a part of it, on my telephone, an audio. Anyway, so, and it was, the story was that, or the pastime was that Srila Prabhupada was in Mayapur. I think in Mayapur, yeah, in the beginning, and some very important persons came. I remember the name. It's a big family, very rich family in India. And a young couple from that family came. And Prabhupada was so eager to receive them well. Even though they offered them a room which was not even finished yet, was not painted or anything like that. That they covered the floor with, this is very, very something that they do in India, especially, this is a cultural aspect of India, of how they live in their houses. They normally don't have furniture, they sit on the floor, and they cover the rooms with a white sheet. They put something underneath to abzufedern. And these rolls, how do you say? Rollen, these rolls. Srila Prabhupada would always receive his guests, or those people who came to visit him, see him, and he would preach to. They would all sit on the floor, and they would put themselves on the rolls, like kind of. And this is very nice. This is part of Vedic culture. Like I mentioned, how to receive people, how to receive guests. and what to speak of known guests. And it was so developed in Vedic culture that it says, for example, when the kings were receiving guests, or another king would come to visit them, something like that, the royal family itself, they took part in the reception. They would be the first person to receive them, stand out there and receive them. They would look after their comfort. They would look after the supply of prasadam and everything. And when these people come, they normally gave them gifts. That's another thing. Just like Rupa Goswami mentions, there's 6 loving, principles of loving exchange between devotees. One thing is to give them prasad and accept prasad. Then giving gifts and accepting gifts reveals one's mind or one's heart, to a person, and take advice or give advice, like that. Anyway, so Prabhupada taught us many of these things. Yeah, I remember that when you go into Srila Prabhupada's room, everyone was sitting on the floor. Even professors would come in, they sit on the floor, kind of, And there were videos, sometimes there's a video where a lot of senior people are sitting before Prabhupada. I think it was in London or Paris. And very high-class people, that you could see they were educated and everything. And they were all sitting on the floor. And they were all, the video shows that they were all observing Prabhupada. They couldn't believe what they saw. They never seen such a person as Srila Prabhupada. And at that time, Prabhupada was not even speaking, not saying a word, just... Remember, there's a video, black and white, Prabhupada sitting, and he's not saying a word. He's just sitting there, and you can't help but look at Prabhupada, and Prabhupada is so incredible. Yeah. And when Prabhupada would look somewhere, everyone would look there, kind of. I remember there's a photo, Prabhupada with us on a morning walk in Schloss Rettershof, and the big group of devotees, and Prabhupada was speaking, and only the persons in the very front, they could actually understand what Prabhupada was saying, and it shows that at one point Srila Prabhupada was laughing, and everyone was laughing, even though they had not understood what this was about. Now there's a famous pictures in Schloss Rettershof on the morning walk with Srila Prabhupada, and kind of by Krishna's arrangement, I was standing right in front of Prabhupada in that morning walk. There was Hansaduda, there were Lakshmi something, the big Sankirtan man from Holland at that time, and Prabhupada is laughing there. And many times devotees who have seen that I was standing right with Prabhupada have asked me, what was Prabhupada laughing about? Of course, my disciples already know this story. Sorry. Anyway, so Prabhupada, at that point, Prabhupada was telling the story how Shamasunda had received him in London. And Shamasunda at that time was a very important person in London, and he was managing the reception of Srila Prabhupada. And for that reception, he got a helicopter to take Prabhupada from the airport to Bhaktivedanta Men. And this whole thing had created a tremendous debt. I remember after Prabhupada left, they decided, I think the GBC decided that Shamasunda not be the manager anymore, and Hansaduda was supposed to take over England also at that time. He was our GBC in Germany. Anyway, so then Prabhupada told the story. He was talking with Hansaduda, and Prabhupada was telling the story, a story. He said, that one time a guru came to the disciple's home. And the disciple was serving him with so much opulence that the guru was always asking, where did you get the money from? And the disciple would always say, it's all your mercy, Guru Maharaj. And whatever happened, he was saying, it's all your mercy, Guru Maharaj. Then at one point when the guru was leaving, he noticed that the disciple had spent all his money. And that was the story that Paul was telling. See, and everyone was burst out. There's a famous picture. And the guru was like, and the others also like laughing, like kind of. Yeah. Anyway, so when Prabhupada was happy, we were also happy. When Prabhupada was serious, there was nothing you could do. You could just wait till Prabhupada said, made a comment or something like that. Yeah. Anyway, so association, it's mentioned here, no? The association with pure devotees is very important. Somehow or other we had this opportunity, and we're celebrating now short, I think Monday was it, the disappearance of Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. So, at that time when Prabhupada was on the planet, there was no internet, there was no Yahoo, there was no Fratzenbuch. Sorry, Facebook. Anyway, so when Prabhupada was present, every now and then we got a tape. Every now and then we got a letter in the temple. And when a letter arrived, nobody could hide it. Yeah, yesterday you read a comment, a letter to Kula Shekhar. No? Remember that? I mentioned that he was in Germany also. Kula Shekhar. Kula Shekhar was in Germany for some time. He came from England with his wife, Vishaka. And he got a letter once from Prabhupada in Hamburg. And by the letter you could see what he had written, Prabhupada said, yes, Waschlappen is okay, wenn man morgens duscht. These kind of details the devotee was asking Srila Prabhupada. What is a Waschlappen in English? I don't know if you do, but the karmis normally when they go in the bath, they have something, they put it over your head and they wash themselves. What? It's like a glove or something like that. Anyway, these kind of letters Prabhupada was also, all these questions Prabhupada would also answer. But then later on, I've mentioned that sometimes here. Prabhupada was writing so many letters to his disciples in the beginning and insisting that they write to him also regularly like that. But then came the time when there were just too many disciples. And a letter came to all the temples, where the secretary Srila Prabhupada would say, now please, don't write to Prabhupada anymore, and try to solve your problems with your local authorities. Temple president, and kind of, yeah. Anyway, in all these letters, they are also kind of documents. I have a disciple in Costa Rica. He is translating everything that Prabhupada, all these conversations and the letters and everything. He's in charge of translating all this into Spanish. You know? Yeah. Chaitanya Deva. Yeah, Chaitanya Deva. And every now and then he's publishing something, some quotes that caught his attention. He's completely in bliss doing that. Yeah? And I told him, this is very special service. You're so blessed. Whatever you do with Prabhupada quotes or books or whatever, this is a very special service. And you feel the closeness, how you say closeness? No? The intimate relation with Srila Prabhupada, when you do books or translations and all this, yeah. And I always tell him that he's so blessed, he's so fortunate that he can do that. And I heard also that because he's doing that, he started giving wonderful classes. And he gives him a report. The other day I received a report where he says, well, now with number so, letter of Prabhupada, and this in conversation, we are at that point, like that. And anyway, so everything that Prabhupada gave us is important. Of course, Prabhupada used to say that the letters are according to time and place and circumstance. That's why they are not the ultimate authority. Maybe for the person who received the letter, yes. Because even when you study the letters of Srila Prabhupada, you even find contradictions. Prabhupada said something to a disciple like that, and he says it to the disciple in a different way, or said not to do it, or something like that. Yeah, whereas Prabhupada used to say that his books were actually there, the law books, for the next 10,000 years. So we're very fortunate to have Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavatam, to have his Bhagavad Gita, and so many other books where we can hear from Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada used to say that his purpose were his personal ecstasy, how is it in English? Yeah. Personal ecstasies. Actually, when you read Srila Prabhupada, you have a very intimate relationship with Srila Prabhupada. Of course, if you don't read much, you didn't read it every now and then, or you read only when somebody tells you to read, then it's different. But when you start reading every day, continuously, then it's different. Actually, everything in Krishna consciousness is like that. In the beginning, it might be very difficult not to accept or to do. But as you surrender more and more, you develop a taste, a higher taste, like Prabhupada used to say. The higher taste. Just like when you become accustomed to read Srila Prabhupada's books or hear from the devotees, you become more and more indifferent to what people are talking about outside. The news or TV or whatever it is, or the newspapers and all that, lose all its taste. All its sensational taste. You can see the newspapers, most of the stuff they publicize is sensational. How is sensational? So people buy. They make it interesting. But when you start associating with devotees and hear from the devotees, you develop a higher taste. And this higher taste is very important. Because, like Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, one might renounce everything, but the taste for sanskritification is still in your heart. But when you actually develop a higher taste, then you give up all these, the lower taste. Anyway, so the instruction that Krishna gives in Bhagavad Gita, like I mentioned even 2 times, is very direct. If somebody asks, well, what should I do? Now I'm a devotee, what should I do? What's supposed to do? And Krishna gives us a direct instruction. Man mana bhava mat bhakto madhyadimam namaskuru. Always think of me. Manyante is thinking in Sanskrit. So the mind has these 3, functions: thinking, feeling, and willing. This should be engaged in Krishna's service. Manmana bhava mad bhakto, and become a devotee. Krishna says, become a devotee. That's an instruction to everybody, not just to us. To the whole block, to the whole of Köln, to the whole of Germany. The instruction is given by Krishna. And nothing less. Become my devotee. Worship me. From the very beginning, Srila Prabhupada, surprisingly, looking back, Prabhupada gave us the worship of the deities. He installed deities. And he would pray to Krishna, please give them the necessary intelligence to worship the deities. Yeah. We also had deities in the beginning in Hamburg, small Radha Krishna deities. They're still there in Abenteuer. But they're not given the same attention anymore like before, when they were the only deities. Yeah. And when the deity worship, actually, this deity worship should be seen also from the standpoint of preaching. The worship should be so nice. The altar should be so nicely arranged. Maybe I have a humble suggestion. Maybe the backdrops that we use, maybe the painter should be directed a little more. I say, mehr spezifisch angewiesen werden. No? He is very talented in painting, but just like in Vedic culture, no? Those people who constructed or painted or even made music and all that, they were under the guidance of brahmanas, they were under the guidance of authorities. Yeah. They learned how to use their talent in the proper way. Anyway, oh Krishna, how did I get to this now? Yeah. So the deities are very important. Just for the simple fact that Krishna is a person, he has a form, he has qualities. Whereas the Mayavadis proclaim that the perfection of life is to realize the impersonal Brahman, where there's nothing or nothing. So that's why, from the very beginning, Prabhupada introduced deity worship to us. And Prabhupada also many times said, all the grihastas, all the homes they should have, like Devaki Mataji was talking about that. When you travel in India, at least the pious families, they all have a special place for their deities at their home. Not like she mentioned that many times when you visit our grihastas, they don't have a special room for the deities, but just some corner or some how you say, altar. Yeah, cupboard that is closed, so the deities don't molest. How you say, disturb. Yes, as I mentioned before. Why is all this especially is important when there are children around? So they learn from the very beginning to pay respect to the deities. And it becomes normal for them to worship and pay respect to the deities. Yeah, so Prabhupada started giving us deities from the very beginning. Yeah, and when Prabhupada used to come to the temple, he used to study very carefully the deities. He remained there and observed them, and after that he usually made comments. He asked questions about the worship of the deities. Nowadays we have in ISKCON, we have a minister of deity worship. And that person is supposed to travel. Of course, now it's a pandemic. There's not much travel from the senior devotees. And that minister is supposed to travel all over the world and check the standard of deity worship everywhere. And he's making, in front of the GBC, every year, he has to make a presentation about the standard of worship in ISKCON, the places he had visited. Yeah. And often he complains that he has gone to that temple and it's not so good, the deity worship, and not a very high standard. There's problems explaining that to them and this and that. So he presents it in front of the GBC and makes sure that the local GBCs take care of it. Yeah. Anyway, so deity worship is one item of devotional service which is very, very important. Like I mentioned many times, Rupa Goswami gave us 64 principles of devotional service. And then he mentioned at the end, he said there are 5 principles which are the most important. And these principles are so powerful that they awaken our love for Krishna within the heart, our Krishna consciousness in the heart. And then he says, even if you only practice one principle, each principle has that power. If you only practice one, and these 5 are Sadhu Sangha, Nama Kirtana, Bhagavata Shravana, and Mathura Vasa, and what am I saying? Srimutira Shadaya Sevana. Yeah? Srimutira Shadaya Sevana means worship of the deities with service. Shraddha and service. With faith and surrender, like doing service. Yeah. I think we came to an end already. Okay, let's stop here then. Any questions or comments? Yes?
Maharaj, please, can you share your realizations? How to get direction, how to get direct instruction while reading Prabhupada's book from Prabhupada and feel direct association with Prabhupada?
Sorry, the last part?
How to feel the direct association with Prabhupada during reading Prabhupada's book.
That's individuality different. I say that. Yeah. There are many things that when you read Srila Prabhupada's books that not only that at the point you are meditating on certain things and then you read and all of a sudden it's there. You know what I mean? Or you, for example, also there's a thing that sometimes we looking for something in the Bhagavad Gita and you open it, it's right there. The verse is right there. The purpose is fitting right there. But Srila Prabhupada is, telling us things that we must hear.
Because Srila Prabhupada, we can see, has different emotion. Chastise somebody and has Prabhupada happy, and different moods. How to accept this bhava, this attraction to Krishna from Prabhupada.
Just accept it as it is. What's that?
Yeah. If you allow me.
Yeah, of course.
What comes in my self-experience in this case is if you study or if you read books of Prabhupada under the guidance of senior devotees who have deep realization. For example, we did the Bhakti Shastri course in Gurukada, and Adipurusha Prabhu, he was giving this. So he was guiding us and teaching us, and we had a part where we study with him, but also a part where we study alone. And what we realize is really by this study ourselves, because we hear from him and he explained the Bhagavad Gita, we could enter the mood of Prabhupada. And sometimes we really realize, wow, we saw this purity and this relationship which Prabhupada had towards Krishna. And we realize also, we never had this before when we were reading about ourselves. So, and I think this is a very important point, that we study the books under the guidance of senior devotees who have this.
But even if there's no guidance, is there no guidance of senior devotees, we should still read.
Sure.
Not just read the books when you're in a seminar or in a Bhakti Shastri course. Make it in your Pflicht, I say, your debt, your duty. It's a duty to read. Every day we should read Prabhupada's books. And I mentioned this many times before. We should read Prabhupada's books, all of Prabhupada's books, before we start reading other books. That's what is my humble attitude in regard to that.
How many hours?
As much as you can. At least something, at least an hour. You sit down and read. And you fall asleep, get up and walk. I'm hearing a lot of tapes of Prabhupada. I'm always hearing Prabhupada. When I get up in the morning, I go to the bathroom, I hear. When I'm under the shower, I hear. When I dress, I hear. When I do anything else in my room, I always hear. When I take prasad, I hear. And I don't want to hear Prajapa during those times. I'm a fanatic, no? I didn't do that before because now I'm in a situation right now that I don't have to worry so much about things. When you have responsibilities in ISKCON, you always have to solve problems all the time. Yeah. And we had the heaviest problems, dealing with the heaviest problems in the GVC. Now that I'm a little retired because of health reasons, I have a lot more time to hear and read. Yeah. And it's very nice. That's why I can only recommend it, that you just read and hear. And it's amazing. I mean, this is unique in the history of our Vaishnava Sampradaya, that we can still hear our Acharya. Even though he's not physically present anymore, we can still hear him, every word. And we can hear it 1,000 times. And we can also see. For example, there's no recording of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. There was a recording, but it got lost. And we can hear Prabhupada, we can see how he walks with his disciples and how he talks with other people. This is Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe. Yeah? We are using everything, even the latest technology, we use it in the service of Krishna. And actually, if you be a devotee, you see it from that point of view. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe. You can understand this is actually Krishna's mercy. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, that we're giving this technology, and the only real purpose of that technology, that it is used in the service of Krishna. Like these telephones, like this thing here. Yeah? Yeah. Everyone has a phone nowadays. Even the children have phones. Yes. But they use it to contaminate themselves, to get dirty. Yeah? Whereas devotees using all these things in the service of Krishna. Microphone. I'm sure that the guy who invented this didn't think about amplifying Bhagavatam. No? Or videos and all, video cameras and all that. Even TV screens we're using. Yeah? But exclusively in the service of Krishna. It's like in German they say it's zweischneidiges Schwert. Normally the swords, I say, are sharp on one side only. No. But all these things, products of the modern advancement, are just like double-sided swords. Yeah. It's wonderful if you use them in the service of Krishna. It helps us tremendously. Like also the vehicles, cars. We travel around, distribute books, travel everywhere, and go to every town and village. Yeah, the same car. There's so many cars, and people use these cars for all kinds of things. But mine is Krishna, and that's why this whole technology just entangles and draws them deeper and deeper, in this illusion. Whereas for us, we use this microphone to amplify Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Kirtan, Bhajan, like that. Or we have on the telephone, we have the Bhagavatam. We come to class and we're sitting there and everyone takes out the telephone to repeat the verse. Here I haven't seen that so much yet, but in other places. Yeah. Or using airplanes, ships. At the time of Prabhupada, there was ships. Everyone traveled ships. When our movement started, only the richest people would travel by airplane. Business people and rich people. Yeah. Anyway, Srila Prabhupada came.
Yeah.
Oh, did I answer a question? Did he answer a question?
Who is the best singer?
Sorry?
Who is the best singer in this con?
Why do you ask?
Huh?
Why do you ask? Do you want to become the best? By knowing the present best?
I mean, reading Prabhupada's books.
Oh. Prabhupada was the best musician, the best cook, the best preacher, the best organizer, the best, what else?
Prabhupada's bhajans and kirtans.
Yeah. Prabhupada was our most authentic, most pure person in all these different aspects. When you hear Prabhupada bhajan, you can be sure this is completely pure. There's no false ego.
This was directly from spiritual world, Golokera Premadana.
When Prabhupada would preach, there was also no false ego at all. Just speaking in the name of Krishna on the former acharyas. Like somebody was saying that, what was that? Should we read the books of the other acharyas in our succession? We should actually know that Prabhupada is presenting us all these acharyas. He is a representative of all these acharyas. He's presenting their conclusions, their realizations, like that. And we heard, no? When Prabhupada was writing sometimes, especially in Mayapur, you go to Mayapur and you go to Prabhupada's room. And behind the deity of Srila Prabhupada, there's a library. I don't know if you noticed, there's a library. And there are books that Prabhupada used to read for his purpose. He had these, what was that? There's a book with all the, I think 12 or so commentaries of the acharya, previous acharyas. And Prabhupada used to read this and give us the essence according to place, time, and circumstances. Prabhupada knew the modern, the mentality of the modern man. And according to that, he was presenting us. Krishna would inspire him to say what was necessary according to time, place, and circumstance. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, when he preached, many of his disciples couldn't figure out what he was saying because he was so highly intellectual, so highly, and he used in English, the Victorian English. This was a kind of English that was super, how you say, elevated. You know, he had an incredible vocabulary that most people didn't even understand because they were not used to these kind of words. And why did he speak like that? To impress the British. They were wondering how this Indian is speaking better English than us. He was empowered like that by Krishna, according to time, place, and circumstance. And when Prabhupada is preaching to us, pah! He was preaching to the young people at that time, in the 60s. And he knew perfectly how to... There's a chapter in the Lilamrita. Only he could deal... How you say... What was that? Only he could deal with them, or something like that. Yeah. And when you read it, or when you hear it, Lilamrita, all kinds of crazy people appeared in the first temple. And they would disturb the lecture of Prabhupada or something like that, or challenge Prabhupada. Yeah. And Prabhupada was so expert in dealing with these situations. Yeah. Sometimes Prabhupada would just say, "Sit down." Srila Prabhupada ki. May I serve you some prasad?